Hey guys, wanted to make a quick YouTube video here to start the thought process of laying out for the floor up at C12. Anyway, so we've got what I'm going to do here. I'm going to start off. This is the digitized data that we generated. You can see some areas here. This is the projection of the face of the cabinets, island location. We've got our plumbing locations, stub outs, water feeds, drains. There's actually some penetrations through the floor too, which are marked out here, so we can, when we lay the template down, we can cut those guys out. Got the end of the cabinet. This marker down here lines or determine or shows where the end of the cabinet is on that side, and then down here on the other end we have a marker down there. This is a duplicate of the same information. I just save a copy of it. But anyway, so what I want to do here is let's bring in here's the CAD information that we received from the designer, the most recent one. Here's our location for center point of the starburst. You can see we're centered on the sink, and then we're given a given distance down off of here. I'll confirm all these dimensions with probably with Chris and Butch. So what I want to start with here is the first layer that I want to open up is what I call the pucks. So if you've been in the kitchen, you'll see those little discs that have been glued and screwed down to the floor. Those pucks represent an indicator that I have for our digitizing tool, and so I know exactly where the center of those pucks are based on this information here, and this is going to help us with the alignment for our template jigs that are going to get mounted to the floor. So our second layer, let me go find that guy right here. So these pieces of plywood, this will be 3/4 inch material, and this first layer, what we're calling, is a warm board border, and so the warm board is going to stop at this perimeter piece here. And the reason we want to put a piece of 3/4 inch plywood down, one, it can be fastened, it'll be very secure, it'll be a good base for the cabinetry to be mounted to, because we're going to elevate up to the finished floor height. Right now we're at subfloor. So this first layer is going to be placed down off of those pucks. You can see those. We're going to cut these recessed holes. We have a 0.005 offset so that the recess hole is a little bit bigger than the puck. You'll also see these things look like jigsaw puzzle pieces. We call them dog bones. Let me go turn those guys back on. There we go. So these guys fit in, and this gives us a perfect alignment of our of all of our pieces. So we have a singular piece, and the reason this is going to be important later on when we start laying out for the starburst itself. I don't have these guys drawn in yet, but there's going to be an item that kind of looks. It's not going to go all the way into this piece, but for the alignment, it's going to be like one end of these dog bones, and it'll come across one here, and then two down at the end of the island here, which is going to give us a perfect alignment for the interior, for the island location. And once again, this is going to be very important later on as we do our marking and our jigs for the tiles. So our second, the next layer, let's go to this guy here. So this is our this is the second layer of plywood. So this first layer we'll probably even need as soon as next week. Whenever Butch needs it, we'll get this put down, and the warm, like I said, the warm floor will go up to that, and then we'll have our radiant going through the floor. That comes out to the perimeter or to the face of the cabinetry. The warm floor looks like it'll travel down underneath the knee space here of the island. But this gives us a good mounting for all of the future cabinetry. And then this second layer, let me turn on this guy here. So you can see these are quarter-inch dowels. They're not going to be this long, but what they do is after we put this first layer down, we have quarter-inch dowels that locate this second layer, so it's exactly where we want it to be. Now this is the we're back. Let me check this. I think we're 6 inches if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 6 inches back from the face of the cabinet will be this secondary layer. And the reason for this, and this is something Butch and I have discussed, let's go to, I call this the burst line. So these guys here, these are the pattern. Let me turn on the gray layer too. This is the starburst from the CAD file that was brought in. And so all of these lines have been generated through, because they stopped around the perimeter here. And let me go to a different view. Got the wireframe. So I projected all of these through to the center circle area. And this is going to help us for the alignment later on, because all of these lines are going to be transferred to this upper, let me go back here. All of these lines are going to be transferred to this second layer. And around this circle here, we're going to have holes pre-drilled to the exact center of these lines. And so strings can be generated across there. And then we also, where the brass inserts go, you can see this layer here. This is an 1/8 inch wide trough that is on the alignment or on the pattern that was specified by the designer for the brass inserts. And so what's going to happen here is on this upper layer here, after the warm board goes down, this secondary layer that is going to help us for the alignment will be put in with these pins. So we'll put these 1/4 inch pins in through the layer that's been put in already. We'll align the island and the perimeter cabinets, and then I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to transfer these lines through, and we're going to engrave a V cut into this pattern for showing where these the alignment of the starburst. And also we're probably going to do a trough, an 1/8 inch wide trough in this brown piece here, so that either the brass insert piece or a temporary wood piece could be placed in there, so that later on when the patterns and the tiles get installed, we can check this and make sure that we're not moving, expanding, deviating from this pattern layout. We have to be really careful, because you gain a couple thousandths here and a couple thousandths there and a couple thousandths there, and then you get all the way around this guy and you're off by 1 inch or you're off by 1/2 inch, and we can't have that. We have to be able to check ourselves throughout this whole process. So let's see, my next layer that I want to take a look at. So I talked about the brass. Let's see. Okay, so these guys here, you saw that layer just turned on. What we're going to do, these are the centers. These are the centers of the line. There's no grout joint in there yet. This is something else that I have to do next week, is go through and offset both sides of this a 32nd of an inch. So we want a 1/16 of an inch grout joint in here. And then we have this 1/8 inch brass in here, but then we want to offset this line a 1/16, and then this one a 1/16, and then that's going to generate what our tiles are going to be. These center lines here, if you zoom in on these guys, you can see how, oh, that one's pretty good. Some of the lines, when they're brought in from the CAD file, they either stop short or they travel beyond. You can see it here. This guy travels through this guy. This one doesn't. This was probably the starting line here, and this was probably offset to that side. But anyway, so we can't just snap to those. So I have to go through and draw each one of these tiles. what we're gonna do is we were gonna start out by making a pattern of each one of these on the CNC and number that. We were going to do out of MDF to begin with, and after talking with Butch, we were going to go with maybe even go with plywood. But I think that a lot of this cutting is going to be done because of the weather that we've been dealing with lately. We're going to have moisture in the air. Definitely MDF or even plywood could expand a little bit. And like we were saying before, you gain a couple thousandths here, a couple thousandths there, and then all of a sudden things aren't fitting. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut the templates of these guys out of plastic. We have a unit of plastic here left over from another project that we're going to use. That way we know that there's not going to be any expansion and contraction or expansion because of moisture. These things could sit outside and they'll be fine. Anyway, they'll all be marked or numbered. So this whole, as we go through, each one of these tiles is going to be numbered, the temporary one, and then, so they can be laid out and then taken out, fabricated, and then replaced with the actual piece of stone. So I think that's all that I wanted to show for right now. Oh, a couple other things that we talked about. Let me turn off the brass insert and this burst. So this is the actual pattern that's going to be traveling through here. This area out in here, I think it's right about at the end of this wall straight across. All of this area is walnut. So one of the other things that we're going to do, which I don't have drawn yet, is that standoff from layer 1 over to here for getting a perfect location of the island. And over here, we're going to do the same thing out here because we need to have a start, stop, and a jig for routing out the walnut, because there's walnut flooring in here that these tiles need to go into. So we're going to generate that. So, but to keep that alignment all the way around this pattern, we're going to do an index off of here, probably a removable one here, and then a couple coming off the island here that'll go to the plywood that will follow this pattern. So we will have an extension of these lines generated onto the pattern around the perimeter, or the jig around the perimeter. So we can check alignment on all of these tiles as we travel around. So if anybody has any questions or comes up with something that would make life easier for your portion of this job, please get back to me or Butch, and we're glad to take care of that. I'll give an updated video of this as I generate all this line work and this other set of templating around the perimeter. So with that, any questions for me, give a call, 831-345-2812, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you very much.